Okay, Riley. Relative density, not a force. I don't care how many times you want to say it isn't. And here's the thing you haven't shown that it is either. Not once. Because you seriously don't have a clue how the scientific method works. Okay, Riley, look at this. You did this whole experiment with an egg and salt water and tap water and table salt and your parts per million meter, which is really a TDS meter. It even says it right on the front of it. And then made the claim that you changed the position of the egg by changing the relative density between the egg and the water. Which is true. Except it's not true. Because the part that's not true is that effect only works in the presence of gravity. Why? Because relative density between two objects does not create a force, nor does it create some sort of directionality. So here's the thing. You didn't follow the scientific method. You proposed something. Then you said, this is what happens because I made the change. I manipulated the independent variable. And no, that's not what you did. You presupposed that gravity doesn't exist and then made the outrageous claim that anybody who wants to bring gravity into this is engaging in pseudoscience. No, you're wrong. Every textbook in every college and every university on the planet says you're wrong. Every scientist says you're wrong. Every physicist says you're wrong. Every engineer says you're wrong. The onus is on you to prove that gravity doesn't exist in order to be able to make this claim. Here's what's missing from your so-called scientific method experiment. You provided no sort of test that it could be anything other than relative density. In other words, you're saying gravity doesn't exist, yet you did not provide any sort of methodology for determining that. The big thing, the thing that's missing is all you did was make a claim. There's no evidence in your video that your claim is true. You provided no observation, calculation, or measurement that shows that relative density is the one and only reason for the neutral buoyancy of the egg to the exclusion of all other possibilities. You have no clue what you're doing. You don't understand how gravity works. Otherwise, you would know that you would need to test for gravity in order to be able to say this experiment works. Nice try, but no cigar. You have proven nothing with this experiment. Well, other than it's a very good demonstration of neutral buoyancy, something I'm very familiar with. Let's see. What was your next attempt at proving relative density? Oh yeah, there's this. This is one of your stupider claims, one of your stupider experiments. What's going on here is obvious that it's differential pressure. You even talk about differential pressure in your description of the whole experiment. You claim that running air through an ice bath, making the air more dense and putting it in the top of the bottle, is what creates the force to push the water out of the bottle. This is another situation where you completely fail to understand how the scientific method works. You should have also tested something like, putting hot air, which is less dense than the air that's in there, and see if that also produces the same results. We both know the reason you didn't do it was because you would have gotten the same results. Easy. This is a differential pressure problem. I don't even see how density plays a part in what's going on here. It's simple physics and differential pressure. Dude, it's amazing to me that you believe this actually proves something. But you know what's also missing from this so-called experiment that does not follow any form of scientific method whatsoever? Oh yeah, it's an observation, calculation, or measurement that proves beyond a shadow of doubt that relative density is the cause for the result of this experiment to the exclusion of all other probabilities, such as gravity. So, you're done. This does not work the way you say it works. It is simply differential pressure, and you failed to show how this experiment proves it's only relative density and nothing else. Let's see. What's your next lame-ass attempt to prove, well, something? Oh yeah, this one. This one's funny because you proved, again, differential pressure. The magnesium takes all of the oxygen out of the Erlenmeyer flask. Therefore, now the Erlenmeyer flask has a less gas in it, therefore has a lower pressure than atmosphere, and you have a differential pressure across the plunger of the syringe. And for you to say anything else, well, it's pretty much just fucking lying, because you've shown no, what is it? Oh yeah, observation, calculation, or measurement proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that relative density is the cause for the results of this experiment to the exclusion of all other possibilities, including differential pressure and gravity. Another lame-ass attempt to prove something that's nothing but a claim. There's no evidence here. Get a clue, will you? I think I've seen this syringe again somewhere. Oh yeah, there it is. You did the same experiment, and you have a differential pressure between what's in the flask and the atmosphere, and therefore the atmosphere pushes up at a plunger and lifts the weight. You know, the interesting part about this is knowing how much magnesium you put into the Erlenmeyer flask, the volume of the Erlenmeyer flask with the plug in place, including the volume of the air in the tube and the syringe, you could actually calculate, using a differential pressure, how much weight that thing would lift. The weight of the plunger plus the weight of the hook and, rod and that disc. And you could actually calculate how much more weight you could have lifted with this experiment than what was there. Why? Because it's simply another demonstration of differential pressure. And there's something else missing from this one. What could that possibly be? Oh yeah, I remember. You provided no observation, calculations, or measurements that prove beyond a shadow of doubt that relative density is the sole reason for the results of this experiment to the exclusion of all other probabilities, such as gravity and differential pressure. See, here's the problem. You don't understand how science works. You don't understand how the scientific method works. You think it's this singular linear thing. You don't put any thought into it as to why it is the way it is. You don't understand how gravity it works in this situation, so you ignore it. And then say that anybody who wants to bring gravity is engaging in pseudoscience. Well, that's just wrong, because every scientist on the planet, every physicist on the planet, every engineer on the planet, every university, every college, every high school, middle school, junior high school, elementary school, all teach that it's not relative density, it's gravity and differential pressure in these cases. So for you to tell them that it's wrong, you can't just demonstrate the experiment that everybody knows what's going to happen. Why? Because. Let's move on from this one. So, what are we left with? We left with you doing a bunch of really silly experiments that everybody knows what the results are going to be, because they're the same experiments they do in high schools and middle schools and junior high schools and universities and colleges all over the planet. Only those people actually go into it with the understanding of what's really going on, of differential pressures, of gravity, of forces and moments, static equilibrium, dynamic equilibrium. What's going on here? How is this working? They know beforehand, before they run an experiment, what the results are going to be because they calculate it. When I was at the School of Engineering at the University of Connecticut, we had to take physics for engineers. And in order to do that, you had to go through the first 2 semesters of calculus and all of the statics and dynamics and stuff as prerequisites, because we had to go in and actually derive the equations we were going to use that all the other students that take physics 1 and 2 would use, and show how we get to that equation before we apply it to anything. There are people out there who do this stuff for a living, scientists and physicists who do this for a living and know and understand how it works, and you don't think they're going to catch you on your bullshit? The other problem you have is your claims that things fall through the atmosphere due to relative density. You've made this claim in multiple videos, and you keep coming back to this silly density tower. Actually, it's not that silly. It's actually very cool, and the forces involved are very cool. And by the way, you need to have a force, and it's not density, it's gravity. But why does this have anything to do with the atmosphere? The atmospheric pressure and density varies linearly, but here's the thing, it's all one medium. The other thing you need to make a density tower work besides gravity is that the mediums all have to have different densities. You need different mediums. The atmosphere is a single medium. So what causes it to be at standard atmospheric pressure at mean sea level and 250 millibars up around the jet stream? What's the external force? You say relative density provides the force, but it doesn't. You're going to make that claim. I know you are. You're going to go and you're going to say the forces comes from density and the directionality comes from density, but that's just a claim. You need to figure out what evidence really is. How about you show us how in a relative density model atmospheric pressure varies linearly from mean sea level in the vertical direction to any altitude you want? How about you show how relative density causes things to fall at a constant acceleration regardless of the magnitude of that relative density? The acceleration on something at sea level on a tungsten ball dropped from a given height is the same as it is if it were in a vacuum. Why is that? Riley, that doesn't make any sense in a relative density situation. You're going to have to show why things go to a higher density. Because if it's relative density, wouldn't it want to go to a lower density and thus go up? How about you provide some observation, calculation, and measurement that proves beyond a shadow of doubt the relative density is the cause of, all that stuff, to the exclusion of all other possibilities, including gravity? So as you can see, you've provided absolutely no evidence. In all of those videos, with all the little demonstrations you have, none of it contains a single observation, measurement, or calculation that shows the relative density is anything other than density. You haven't shown it's a force. You haven't shown it to the exclusion of all other possibilities, including differential pressure and gravity. Try again. This is Mike the Engineer, and I'm done.